Okay, this is Albert at Hallicrafters Rehabs. Welcome back. This is episode 6, I think. And today I'm going to do a little more work on the clamshells for this transformer. And I've got one more little attachment that I need to paint and a few other small items. But before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about documentation. And even before that, I want to say thank you for all the new subscribers and for the good comments that people have been coming in. I do appreciate it. Remember, I'm not getting any awards for this. I'm just doing it to share what I learned when I learn it. So this, one of the things is, and I've seen this especially with done in Restoral radios and some of the other YouTube channels that do this kind of thing. They're big on documentation, and that's important to me too. For example, this radio that I restored was in horrible condition when I got it. And so what I've done is I try to document. First, I'll have a restoration or rebuild report and all of the changes that I made to it and replacements and things like that, the table of replaced components, some additional safety features and additions to the system. That radio has a buffer circuit and a digital display. So, well, gee, wouldn't it be nice if you knew how it worked? So I put in a schematic diagram and even a printed circuit board so that the poor bloke that has to get into this sometime in the future would be able to service it. Hopefully won't need to for some considerable length of time. But, I mean, if there weren't undocumented, unknown changes to all this vintage electronic equipment, then I think YouTube would have half as many videos as it does. And so keep on modifying stuff and don't document it so that YouTube will be prosperous. No, the serious thing is that it makes it real difficult to restore a piece of equipment if you don't know anything about the change. This particular one had 2 extra tube sockets in it, and all kinds of rewired stuff and things like that. So we had to basically gut this thing out. And then after the rebuild report, I do alignment and dial calibration documentation, and how I did it and what equipment I use. Whenever you're doing testing, you should really write a test procedure so that other people could follow it, but mainly so I can follow it, and sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't, and I should. So in here, the results of testing, snapshots of the IF curves are in here. Then there are a lot of other tests as I watch other. This is a drift curve. These radios do drift a lot, and I'm thinking most of that is really from the tubes themselves. Sensitivity measurements, minimum detectable signal, the image rejection, which is actually a problem with the SX-99, an audio frequency response. Did I do this one log? I didn't do it log, but I'm doing them log now, log. The S-meter, how that thing, and so forth, that's in the test results. I also do a startup. I'm the opposite of Shango 66, who I think is a very brave and very experienced and very good guy. And I'm really amazed at some of the things he does, like smash a television to find spare parts and things like that. That's somebody who is necessity is the beginning of invention or something like that. Anyway, I'm the other side of the spectrum. Do I really want to put power to this thing after all the work I've done? So I have a very careful, slow procedure for starting up a radio from, once it's been put together and we think it's ready for power. And then I go and do voltage measurements at various power levels. The tubes I have test results on, and this is that table of resistances that I took on this one, which I'll be using again, this is the as found. And believe me, you will resolve all the anomalies in the voltage measurements and in the resistances before the radio is working right. So you will do that. If you think that you can just start it up and it works good and then you try and figure it out, but this gives you a real good start to isolate problems early in the startup testing of a receiver, and then I even keep a service record. So there's a lot more to it than this. This is what it came out at the factory, but these are updated receivers, and they don't, and without these, it's kind of like, it's not a safety factor, but in some respects it is. Like an aircraft, half its value is its documentation. And, well, this is not anywhere close to the complexity of an aircraft, but the documentation is important if you ever had to do servicing or to keep it with the radio, and it passes from one person to another, take the documentation with it, and then, there'll be a better situation. So with that old long lecture, I need a flat surface, so I'll take this back. I'm going to go ahead and document these transformers and their values, both the inductance and the DC resistance. So we'll start with primary, and then of course we'll turn it on. This is the new cheap Chinese gadget I got here. And we're into inductance. So it's in range. I don't know why it's showing me a negative. Maybe let's try resistance first, just to be okay. Isn't that interesting? This will, I have to tell you, that's why you want good instruments. The first thing that I did was I had to repair it because these things are coming apart. I've worn it out. So this is showing what I think it should show, which is 300 ohms in the primary. So we'll write 306. And I don't know why you have a negative inductance. Oh, that's okay. So this is getting more like what I expect to see. So it's showing 3.7 henries. And that's on the primary. And so if you had to replace it, then you've got everything you need right there in the documentation. Just go order it. Don't piddle around and tear things out. Okay, so we're going to measure from the ground to green, which I think is the low impedance. Let's take a look. No, I think it's a high impedance. So that's showing 223 millihenries. So secondary, I got this mislabeled, green, black. 222. And then we can look at the resistance. And this will be the 300 ohm tab. So this is 58. Okay, and then I'm not interested in green to yellow. I'm going to wipe that out of it. That's interesting, but doesn't mean anything. The yellow to black is 0.5 ohms. That's about right. Yeah, this will be the low impedance output, or 3.2 ohms. And it's looking at 1.5 millihenries. All right. Now let's go over and take a look at the power transformer. Again, the next time around, there may not be a parts receiver around for these things. You may have one of these things go out, and you're going to be buying a new one to keep the radio working. And hopefully they're making them at the time. So let's see. This is the primary leads. I can actually tell the color now that I've cleaned it enough. And that looks like 348 millihenries. So power transformer, primary black, 350 now millihenries. I hope I gotta get this over where people can see it. So, and can even prop it up. And then for the resistance, it's going to be in the range of 4.6 ohms. And it's going to take that electric power and just go zap, 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 and turn it into all kinds of good energy for the radio, right? Now this is the tube heater circuit, and we're reading in ohms 0.3 on this particular. I could use a different one, but that's fine. So this is secondary green, filament green says 0.3, and looks like it's 1.3 millihenries. Okay. Now let's do the rectifier filament, which is right here. This does not take long. It'll go in and then it'll be part of the record for the radio. Okay, so I don't need to lecture that kind of stuff. You guys are smarter than I am. Looks like yeah, 0.78 millihenries for the rectifier filament. So that's an N, 0.79. And then for the resistance, be less, or it really is not going to show up on this one, so we'll just say 0.3. Okay, now the real thing here is we're going to go from one secondary plate winding. That's at 116 ohms, so that's hot to center strike. And this one is 126. Yes. And that's because of the way one winding is over the other winding. It always comes out that way. Okay. And then for the inductance, I love this new cheap Chinese. There we go. It's got inductance, capacitance, and resistance, and you just rotate around. I really like the LCR, basic LCR. Okay, 2.7 is over here. Then we'll switch to the other back now. And it's 2.7. See, so what's the controlling aspect? Not the resistance, but the inductance. Okay? And do I really want it heater to heater? Well, I mean, plate to plate, well, we got it. Okay. That's 10.83. Henrys. These are Henrys. I forgot. I was not paying attention. And the resistance is 243. But these will be the values that you're looking at, I believe. I have to go and look. But anyway, when you do the resistance back to the B plus 243. Okay. All right. So that's, and I'll put the, let's put the part number for this on here if I can read it. Yes, 55C265. Pretty standard part on various models of. Now, I'm going to go, we're through with this and we're going to do a little fun work. So I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so these clamshells have been soaking in evaporust for several days now, and I've just washed and cleaned them off, and so we're going to see if we can just get a little bit more of that rust and crud off with some of my famous Astronomer's 500 silicone carbide grit. And maybe this will help. At least smooth it out so that when I put paint on it, it won't look kind of cruddy. Yeah, I think that's going to help a little bit. Get a little bit more rust off as well. So I'm not going to take, we've been here before with the chassis, so I'm not going to take up a lot of time, but we're just going to go around on this side, and we're going to go on, let me show you what it'll look like on the other side. This has got all pitting and stuff like that, so it's going to rub off some of the paint and smooth things out. And I wonder if we'll be able to read the serial number. I can read the serial number, but it'll be more evident, hopefully. I might need to, oh yeah, look how that stuff just drills down into the paint like that. Isn't that nice? Gets rid of a lot of the pitting. This is my first attempt at doing astronomy mirror grinding grit on a transformer. Boy, you can really, it starts to, you can see that serial number coming up a lot better. I wonder what happens when you just clean it off right now. It's still a rough edge, but with work and time, it's certainly better than it was. All right, well, we're going to work on this for a little while. I won't take up your time on that. We'll just see the results. Well, the inside of these cleaned up pretty good. And I'm not going to paint that because, well, they weren't painted before. And there's probably a reason for that, so I'm going to just use bow shield on the inside. This was the top side. It had almost nothing in it except these edges here. So I didn't think I was going to use rouge, but I did. Turns out that, well, first of all, the 500 grit worked a whole lot better with lacquer thinner than with alcohol. And so that smoothed out really nice, even though it doesn't look as smooth as it is. And then the rouge also smoothed it out further. You can even see the serial number possibly. Let's see if it's sort of readable, but when it's painted it'll even be more. And the rouge makes a nice roux. A roux of rouge, a roux of red rouge, and you just leave that on there even, and the lacquer thinner soaks in. Now these edges have a lot of thick paint on them because that's the edges of the metal when it was stamped is turned up a little bit, and that paint accumulates in there. But all that will clean up pretty nicely. On the bottom side there really wasn't. It'll be painted, but there really wasn't any issues. I did go over it a little bit with the stuff, but it's going to be just fine. So, Willman Bell Incorporated, Richmond, Virginia. That's one of them. There's others out there too. Rouge is rouge, red is red, roux is roux. So, we're going to paint this. Oh, there's actually two of these in the radio. The one with this goes on the antenna compensator variable capacitor, and this one is for the standby receive switch. Just has two screw holes. Again, in the first video, I had the problem with the knob coming off the shaft of the standby receive switch, and I said, well, we'll take, and I got it off, and then all that kind of stuff, and we'll put this in a safe place. Well, one of these days I'll find that safe place. This is a replacement for my parts receiver. I don't know where that safe place is, but I think there's some collectible currency in there, there's jewelry, there's a lot of stuff in that safe place. If I can ever find it, it'll be nice. I'll find this part also. So we're going to finish this out. I'm going to paint this, and I'll set up for that, and then I'll come back. Okay, before I paint, I almost forgot a step. I've coated the inside of these clamshells with the bow shield SX-99. And the bottoms, this has already been painted. I've coated, that's coated also, and that will be ready to go, as well as this one that's been painted. And it's had the bow shield put on it. This one has been painted, I put that on there. And this one, which I'm going to paint, has had it on the bottom too. So something about, I don't think I want to put black paint on top of that chassis, just like that, raw. I'm just going to leave it bare with just some protectorant on it. So the next step is to paint these clamshells on that side. One other note, lacquer thinner is really pretty dangerous to work with. My neighbor was a furniture painter and a carpenter, master carpenter, and he died of a cancer tumor, probably induced in part by lacquer thinner. I had the garage door open while I was working with this, and the mixture of lacquer thinner and red rouge is in a roux, is a bit of a rude combination. Rude, red, rouge, whatever. And so you wear gloves, and of course you want to wear old clothes like a old Redskin t-shirt is perfect for this kind of work. You can throw that away at any time. So but be careful in working with lacquer thinner or paint thinner or anything like that, and do it in an open environment. Okay, so I've painted the clamshells, and they're drying right now, and this other part, and I've removed the tape from the chassis, and there were no incidents, so I'm thinking that we've got a good chassis here, and it's cured enough, and I'm going to let everything dry and cure another day. This stuff doesn't take that long. It's just an acrylic, thick black paint, but this apparently was a very delicate paint that I used. I didn't realize. So then once that's done, it's time to start putting things back together. This black will be a nice contrast to the copper tone. I think this will be a really good looking radio. So again, thank you for the new subscribers. Thank you for the really generous comments that's been coming from people who are far more experienced at this than I am. And this is Hallicrafters Rehabs. Thanks for watching.